Three.
Hello everyone, Hayakum and welcome to GEMS Al Khalij National School's virtual Majlis. This is our seventh virtual Majlis for this academic year. I cannot believe that we've gone this far. I would like to announce that this is sadly our last. I'm sorry, but I have to repeat this again. Hello everyone, Hayakum and welcome to GEMS Al Khalij National School's virtual Majlis. This is our seventh virtual Majlis for this academic year. I cannot believe that we've gone this far. I would like to announce that this is sadly our last virtual Majlis for this academic year. I am beyond excited for this virtual Majlis. I cannot wait for the students to share their thoughts and ideas about our topic. All right. Today's topic for today's virtual Majlis, we are going to be talking about students' voice, reflections, and takeaways from the past year. In this virtual Majlis, us as students are going to talk about the reflections and takeaways from the past academic year and how COVID-19 and the pandemic have affected our educational career and our personal lives. I would love to share what we have done so far in the AKNS virtual Majlises. We have connected 140 students together. We have we broke the boundaries between 30 schools and built roads between 8 countries. And we have discussed and connected between 7 global topics. And that's not the only thing that we have done so far for these virtual majlises. We also had more than 60 discussion hours. I know that it might sound a lot, but actually it is a lot. We have worked a lot on these virtual majlises. These 60 plus hours include the icebreaker sessions, the rehearsals, the time we've spent on the emails and and doing the certificates for the students and the actual live events and after the live event and before the live event. All of these happen in these 60 plus discussion hours. We have also invited guests from big institutions such as Expo 2020, GEMS Education, the Sustainable City, Art Jamil, Dubai Health Authority. These 7 global topics include Expo 2020, which we talked about 3 different topics about, which is mobility, sustainability, and opportunity. We also talked about amplifying students' voice, sustainable cities and communities through Generation Z's eyes, how technology remakes humanity, connecting people through art, climate change, life below water, and life on land, can we turn words into action, and finally, our topic for today, which is students' voice, reflections, and takeaways from the past school year. We believe that these virtual majlises are not are not activities that we do. They're not virtual majlises that we choose the best students from. We choose the smartest students, the ones that are the highlights of the years. No, we believe these virtual majlises happen because we want all students to participate in them. We believe that students' voice matter and every student's voice matters and every student should be able to achieve their goals and to be able to participate in these virtual majlises. I would love to give a big thank you to every single student in every single school that have participated in the virtual majlises. All right, and for today's virtual Majlis, we have 9 international schools. Can you believe that? We have 9 international schools from many different countries, starting with the United States of America, Lebanon, Egypt, the United Kingdom, Ukraine, Nigeria, and Canada. And I would love for all to introduce to all of you guys our special guest, Mr. Dino Varki. I would love to also have a small introduction about Mr. Dino Varki, if he doesn't mind that. Is it okay, Mr. Dino Varki?
Of course, of course. So, Taline, you'd like me to introduce myself to everybody, or will you do an introduction?
Yes. We can do both. I'll just read the first introduction that actually I have found on your guys' website, and then you can introduce yourself to everyone. All right. Mr. Dinovarki represents the third generation of education family, driven by providing access to quality education for almost 60 years. He currently serves as the Chief Executive Officer of GEMS Education, responsible for providing vision, insights, and strategy across the organization. He is a frequent speaker and moderator at global conferences and gatherings. He is a member of the World Economic Forum's Global Future Council on Education, Gender, and Work from 2016 to 2018. He was also a founding board member of the YPO Dubai chapter.
Perfect. Honestly, I don't think I need to introduce myself anymore. That was as good an introduction as I could have hoped for. Just to say, to tell everybody attending, I think at any point where students have the opportunity to really give power to their own voices, that's when we are at our best. So I'm really excited to be a part of this. I'm really excited to engage with you guys, and congratulations to all of you for coming together in a forum like this.
Thank you, Mr. Dinovarki, and it's such an honor for us, for you to be here. We actually wanted to meet you in real life, but although there's the pandemic going around, but we decided to do this virtually over the virtual majlises. It's such an honor, and we want to give you a big thank you for you to join our virtual majlis for today.
Pleasure.
All right, and please allow me to welcome our speakers. From GEMS Athlete National Schools, we have Rewan Yasser, Saif Al Falasi, Dima Adel, and from GEMS World Academy, we have Chloe Nosivali, and from GEMS Founder School, we have Anastasia Onosova. And our first international students from the United States of America, we have Muhammad Shafi from Mason Intermediate School, Mason, Ohio, USA. Right now, it is currently 3:30 a.m. in the United States of America, and I believe that Muhammad has some words to share. But I remember that he promised us that if he was able to stay awake until this time, he would join the virtual majlis. Hopefully, you're sleeping well, Muhammad.
My name is Shaf. I live in the U.S. and the first year of my fifth grade wasn't great. I couldn't have talked with any of my friends in Zoom calls, by actually speaking, or by Zoom chat, because there's a setting that the host made that you can only message the host if you have questions or stuff. So like if I ever wanted to talk to my friends, I'd have to get on the phone after school, and I couldn't go outside to play with others because of quarantine back then. And I also had to sit in my room and do all of my work by myself, so that got kind of boring. And then a few months later, we had the option to go in school, and we chose it, and it was way better than the online school, because I could talk to my friends, the teacher, and if someone needed help, then the teacher would actually focus on them and actually help them instead of trying to teach the full class and leave somebody behind. And they had way more fun classes, because my ACT class in online school was
People might not know what ACT is.
it's a gifted and my gifted and talented program in my online school was pretty bad. And then when I went in school, then it became my favorite subject that I ever had. So, and the school still had pretty good safety measures, so like it wasn't that big of a risk to going to school without COVID. And to summarize, I would definitely have enjoyed instead of if I had just started in school instead of online school. Bye.
Thank you, Muhammad. And from American School of Creative Science, we have Haya Muhannad and Ali Ahmad. And from James Al Khalij National School, we have Aryan and Rhoda. And from the Winchester School, we have Inaya Danish, Idalia Jirisinha. From our own English High School Sharjah, we have Amuk and Amkur. And now from Nigeria, we have Muhannad. And currently in Nigeria, it is 8:30 a.m. And we believe that he is still sleeping now, or he might be doing a test since he also has exams. But he decided to send us a video so he can share his thoughts and ideas about our topic.
Good morning. My name is Mohammed Muslimani and I am a grade 11 student in a school named ILCTVO in Canada, but I'm currently studying remotely from Kano, Nigeria. It's where I was raised at all through my life. One of the advantages of digital learning. It allows you to be with your friends and family and at the same time school anywhere in the world. Another advantage I personally experienced with digital learning is the comfort it gives to a student, as well as the protection it provided during the peak of the pandemic. Digital learning has a lot of other benefits, but just like everything, it also comes with many other disadvantages. One of the disadvantages of digital learning results from students being unserious about it. Another disadvantage comes with the lack of technological literacy among some students and teachers. Digital learning has been the only literal futuristic schooling method that the world has witnessed, and I advise students to take it seriously.
Thank you, Muhannad. And now from GEMS Modern Academy, we have Anwesha. And from GEMS Cambridge International Private School Sharjah, we have Jerpreet. And another international student from Canada, we have Sarah. I believe now it is currently 4:30 a.m. in Canada, but Sarah decided to send us a video so she can share her thoughts and ideas about our topic for today's virtual Majlis.
Assalamu alaikum. Hi, my name is Sarah Massad. I live in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and I'd like to thank you for including me in this. I can't wait to see the final results. Here in Halifax, we didn't go to online school straight away. We actually went to regular school for a couple of months until we got a COVID-19 outbreak. That's when we started our online school. And when we started online school, there were a lot of people who were not prepared. There were a lot of people who didn't have microphones, cameras, laptops. But once we got that all figured out, we were able to move forward. I personally don't like online school. I'd rather be in class because with online school, I feel like there's been a barrier, which is a screen, keeping me from communicating with everyone else. That's okay though, I'm learning how to adapt and I'm doing fine. Here in Halifax, we just started giving the vaccine to people who are 12 and over, so I have my first appointment to get my first shot, the Pfizer vaccine, on June 16th, which I'm pretty excited for. And the government here has announced that starting June 2nd, we're going to start to ease up our restrictions because the COVID cases have gone down and the amount of people who are getting vaccinated is going up. It's easy to say if we go back to our old lives, we're not going to forget about this. Like, this is history in the making. This is going to go down in the books.
Thank you, Sarah. All right. And from Al Mawakib School, we have Aisha, Raja, and Jude. And from GEMS British International School, Egypt, we have Iyad. And from Ukraine, we have Yelizaveta from school number 29 in Mariupol, Ukraine. And we also have another international student from Lebanon. We have Daniel from Irfan School, Lebanon. Due to the internet issues and the internet connection in Lebanon, Daniel decided to send us a video to share his thoughts.
Hey, my name is Dan. I'm Lebanese and I'm 14 years old. This year was a challenging year where we're discovering our strengths and limitations. This global pandemic made this year like no other, and honestly, it's hard to be something in one word or a phrase. It's a combination of exhausting year, surreal, chaotic, especially that here in Lebanon, we were worried about different things other than the COVID situation. However, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and now I think we're more prepared for any other obstacle. I offer a solution to the virus, to our political system, to the economic situations, and I'm looking forward to relax our shoulders again, and I'm wishing love and peace all over the world.
Thank you, Daniel. Please welcome our speakers from an international student from the United the United Kingdom. We have Aishir from Wanstead High School, and from Lebanon we also have Maya from LAU, and from College Notre Dame Luazi, we have Robin and Teresa. And finally, let's start our virtual Majlis. I would love to start by asking Mr. Dino Varki a question. So basically, so basically, I believe that since you are the CEO of GEMS Education, I believe that I have a question for you. What was the thing that encouraged you to move on and to actually start this education process of the GEMS schools? What was the encouragement point of you to start doing start being the CEO of the GEMS Education and GEMS schools? What was the thing that encouraged you to do that?
Okay, so I mean, we probably need to go back a little bit before I became CEO of GEMS Education. I need to go back to the roots of my family. So my grandparents were teachers. So 3 out of 4 of my grandparents were teachers, and many years ago, over 60 years ago, my grandparents decided to make a very courageous journey from the south of India to Dubai in the UAE in order to make a better life for themselves and their family. And it was at that point that, because they were educators, they started tutoring adults and students. Then they had their very first school in 1968. Then my father, who's the founder and chairman of GEMS Education, saw an opportunity not only to fulfill a social imperative, but a commercial imperative as well, was able to grow GEMS to where it is today. And we're very proud to say that, we're the largest and the leading K-12 education company in the world. Why did I choose to work in education? Why did I choose to want to be involved in education? Because I couldn't think of many other sectors that would give me the opportunity to fulfill such a significant social imperative. If we are able to do our jobs right, if we're able to successfully inculcate the right values in our young people, beyond the skills that you guys will learn at school, beyond the love of learning that we hope that we inculcate in you, beyond the universities that you'll go on to, beyond the wonderful jobs that you'll go on to make a better life for your own selves and your families and your communities. We know that if we're successful in doing our jobs and in inculcating the right values in our young people, then we will be a powerful catalyst to change our world for the better. So that's why I chose to do this.
Thank you, Mr. Dino Varki. Honestly, this is very inspirational, not only to me and to all people, because I believe the main thing that encouraged you to become to where you are right now is over the 60 years, more than 60 years that your family has been teachers, and you said that three-fourths of your grandparents were actually teachers, and so that's the thing that encouraged you, and you also started building one school. One member of your family started building one school, and then it became into more than one school. Honestly, this is very inspirational, and I believe that Rewan also has a question to you.
Sure.
Good morning, Mr. Dino Varkey. So I'm Rowan Yasser from Grade 11 GA, and I just want to start by saying that I'm a firm believer that having optimistic thoughts and looking at the positive side of things is always important way to deal and cope with them. So I'll start by giving the first benefit the pandemic had on me, and it's strengthening my communication skills and meeting new people. So just the other day, Ms. Khulud came up to me and she mentioned something about how she never heard of me or knew me before online learning started. And I'm assuming it's the same with all of you. I noticed that, yeah, we never had, or I never used to participate in extracurriculars and activities when we were face to face, like I did when I became an online student. So during face to face, I think I took seeing all my friends and teachers for granted. I took communication in general for granted. The simple smiles we give everyone in the morning, the simple hi and how are you, we took that for granted. But when we became online and all communication with everyone decreased significantly, and all these opportunities came up, National Honor Society, the committees, TEDx, MUN, and to me, and I'm sure to many other students, these extracurriculars became something we could turn to as a means of socializing and communication, meeting new people, and enforcing new relationships while being online. So that was not a barrier that stopped us. So I am the head organizer of TEDx Youth at GEMS Al Khadij School 2021 to 2022. And to take the example of organizing the TEDx event this year, we had a lovely community where I met so many new people that I never knew of and they never knew of me. So it was a lovely way to socialize and meet new people, all while being online and developing our talents. So, Mr. Dino Varkey, my question to you is, in your opinion, what is another benefit that online school had on students?
Sure, another benefit. I think the most important thing that I think this entire pandemic and this move to online learning has taught us is the sheer capacity, resilience, ingenuity that exists in the human condition, but most of all in our students. I think you guys displayed strength and a level of agility and adaptability that, frankly, for me, will be some of the most important lessons that you will carry with you as you move to adult life. So despite how hard this year has been, and we hope that we enter a world that's much more normal sooner rather than later, I think the lessons that you've learned, independent of the actual subjects that you learned, the actual life lessons that you learned through this period are going to hold you in incredibly good stead as you go forward. So for me, it was much more than about the specific skills, but I think just being able to, and I think your story exemplifies it, it's made visible the strength of character, it's made visible the capacity and capability of the human condition that exists in our students. And, you know, for me, that's a wonderful thing to have been able to witness over the course of the last 15 months.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dino Varkey. I can say with absolute certainty, and I am sure that many students agree with me, that what you said is 100% true, and we find that very motivating. So thank you for sharing your opinion with us. Now, I believe that Anastasia Onosova has a question for you. Anastasia, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, thanks so much, Ramon. Really beautifully said. And good morning, Mr. Dino Varkey. It's such a pleasure to be talking to you right now. My name is Anastasia Nosova, and I'm representing GEMS Founders School Dubai today. So I know that GEMS Education is a huge corporation that operates in more than 3 countries overseas. So we have countries like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar. And so for you, my question is, for you as a CEO of such a global multinational corporation, what were the differences in approaches to remote learning in these countries? So in other words, what were the difference in initiatives that you might have implemented from country to country? And were these differences influenced by something in specific, like culture or maybe seriousness of COVID-19 spreading, or maybe all of these combined?
Sure. I mean, so let me take you through what I think were the consistent elements, despite where we operate schools. What were the consistent themes and elements that allowed us to be as successful as we were over the last 15 months? So I always say that, our success over the last 15 months is predicated on the fact that not just because we had the right technology systems and infrastructure, but also because we've had a consistent set of expectations in terms of our people, so your teachers, our processes, and our pedagogy. So, how do we teach? It wasn't enough that we simply took what we would have done in a typical classroom and tried to make that relevant and online. It wouldn't have been as effective. So I think if I'm grateful about something, I think in terms of technology, people, pedagogy, and process, those were things that were consistent, right? And allowed us to be as successful as we were. What were some of the challenges or some of the differences? The way that each country chooses to manage the pandemic is a big factor in what you're able to do in terms of schools. So the rules, the regulations, the policies, the measures and initiatives that any country puts in place in order to deal with the pandemic, that will impact what you do. And certainly across some of the countries that you mentioned, and we have schools in other parts of the world as well, the efficiency and the efficacy of how countries dealt with the pandemic was different. So, here in the UAE, for those of us that are here in the UAE, we've had the benefit of remarkable leadership and national response to dealing with the pandemic, right? We've managed to get the balance between keeping all of us safe, but also trying to keep our economy going. In some parts of the world, they've kept everybody safe, but the economy is still closed, and that's been incredibly hard for a lot of people. In some parts of the world, they haven't been able to keep people safe. So I think we're fortunate that in most of the countries that we operate, the leadership response to dealing with the crisis has been exemplary and frankly amongst the best in the world, which has then enabled us to be successful in terms of what we do at schools. We're very fortunate. I think you guys need to remember that you're very fortunate that there were very many millions and millions of students that did not perhaps have the experience that you guys have had in the last 12 to 15 months. Even though it was hard and even though we'd all love to be back in school, back to normal, there were many, many parts of the world where the educational experience that students received just wasn't there. So when we talk about the learning divide, there are lots of students that would have gone backwards, and it'll take a lot for us. It'll take a lot for countries to invest to try and recover what they call the learning loss. So, those are some of the challenges, but I would like to think that we've all been relatively fortunate in how we've been able to deal with the 15 months. Thank you for your question, Anastasia.
Thank you so much for your answer, sir. Yeah, I can definitely agree that I'm beyond honored to be a resident of the UAE because we fought through the pandemic like no other country did. And we are still setting the example for many, many, many countries around the world. We are the leaders in this industry. And yeah, thanks to the government for that, for keeping us safe at all times. And I believe that Haya has the next question for you. Thanks so much. And I'll forward it to Haya.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, my name is Haya and I am a senior in the American School of Creative Science. I'm very thrilled to be a part of such a diverse group of people and to have Mr. Dino Warki in my presence. My experience with the pandemic has been really positive. It gave me and a lot of people the time to really stop and reflect on my and their lives. And I've developed many new skills to adjust and cope with COVID. So my question for Mr. Dino Warki is, what is one unexpected skill you learned during the pandemic?
I don't know if it's a skill or if it's a life hack. Is that the right way? You guys know what a life hack is? I think it's a very new term that I came across only a few months ago, so I'm trying to be cool here. Okay, so I don't know if it's a skill or a life hack. I realized the importance of sleep. Inevitably, the last 15 months have been hard. There'll be moments of stress. It felt like there was a period of time when every meeting, every conversation, every decision had a lot of weight. You know, weight, consequence, a decision that you make will have an impact, sometimes good, sometimes bad, on a lot of people, on a lot of relationships. So that weighs heavy on you, right? It sometimes gives you anxieties, it sometimes stress. So the one thing I rediscovered perhaps, or I discovered or I learned, was the value of getting a good night of rest actually helps you recover your physical and your mental capacities. It's perhaps something I've taken for granted for the last 17 out of my 18 professional years, but it's something that I certainly rediscovered because it allows you to deal with the challenges that life brings to a much greater extent. So I actually felt invigorated. I felt able to deal and respond to challenges and issues. There were other skills that I learned as well. The value of what I call a circuit breaker, because we were certainly from I'm sure it was similar for you guys as students, but certainly from a professional perspective, I was doing more meetings than I'd ever had. I was doing it in a form that was different from how we'd done it previously. So the idea of a circuit breaker was interesting. Just little breaks that just allow you to reset your mind, right? Reset yourself so you're able to deal with the next thing. So those were the two big things: sleep and circuit breakers.
I agree, and I relate on a personal level. This has been one of the most stressful years so far. Since I am a senior in high school, it was kind of like a life-changing step for me, and I had to choose like a career, and yeah, it is life-changing. And I'd love to hear Iyad's opinion, so Iyad, go on.
Hello, good morning. This is Iyad Ayman from BISM Egypt. I've had a question actually. GEMS education is, of course, a huge educational business worldwide and has a lot of success throughout the decades, but focusing specifically on the past 2 years, what were you most proud of during these hard times?
Most proud of? Look, lots of things that I can point to, but let me go back to perhaps last year, just post-lockdown. So, there was a lot of tension, there was a lot of stress, there was a lot of anxiety in the world. We had to make a very quick transition from brick and mortar education into an online setting. And there was a lot of doubts amongst lots of key stakeholders about the ability for schools, and in my case, our schools, to be able to continue to deliver on the promise and potential of our students. And last year, despite the fact that we'd had lockdown just previously, we were fortunate to have the very best academic results in our history. And so that's something that I was incredibly proud of, and proud of the schools, but also proud of our teachers, proud of our students. If there was a tangible metric of our success last year, it was those academic results. But then if there are other things that I'm really proud of, honestly, it's there were incredible stories of student achievement, students that are going above and beyond the work that they do to school in terms of having impact within their communities, whether it was through NGO work, whether kids were inventing things that would make life better for those around them. I mean, the other day, literally yesterday, I read of a student in one of our schools that had developed an idea and a prototype for a walking stick that was AI enabled to support the blind. It's an amazing idea, right?
That is very impressive. Yes.
So when you have stories like that each and every day, how can you not be proud of what everybody is doing? So incredibly grateful for the students that we have in our schools, for the families that support us, but then also, and I want you guys to remember it, your teachers have worked incredibly hard this year, perhaps harder than they ever have. They've developed new skills as well that they thought they didn't have, but they've gone above and beyond for you. So it's always good to remember, even when you have those difficult moments with your teachers every now and again, they've worked really hard for you. So I'm really proud of that as well.
Of course, we'll appreciate that throughout the entire years. I'll pass the mic now to Maya from Lebanon.
Thank you, Iyad, and hello, Mr. Dino and everyone attending. It is personally a pleasure to be in attendance today and to listen to the contributions of the bright young leaders of the future. I personally come from an upbringing in Lebanon. I graduated from Lebanon last year, so it was quite a different situation as to what students have seen here, and I'm very excited to testify on that later on. But I think that regardless of where we are based and what our background is, we all agree on the fact that we as youth are equally as encouraged, as motivated, and as willing to make a change. And my question to you, Mr. Varki, would be, what is your motivation behind encouraging youth, or at least believing in youth, as early as elementary education, not only in becoming students of life, but also in growing and merging into the global citizens that have an outlook for the future and that have a clear vision of how and when to achieve their goals?
Honestly, very, very simple. I think, and maybe every adult generation says this, but we don't do a good enough job of securing the future of this world for you guys. So whether it's the political institutions, the economic institutions, the social institutions that today govern our world, when we're not doing a good enough job of securing the future of this world, the only hope that we have is you guys. And so how can we empower you? How can we empower students and youth to be, as I said before, this incredibly powerful catalyst to change our world for the better? That's all I'm obsessed by, if I'm being totally honest. That's all I think we can all be obsessed by, because, you know, it's easier to imagine a future where we empower you, where you can actually change the world, rather than us trying to unpick some of the structural institutions and systems that govern our world today. We're too entrenched. We're too, what's the word I would use? We're too entrenched in doing things a particular way that perhaps we lack the imagination, the will, the courage to make some of those changes. I'm generalizing here, of course, right? I'm talking in big, broad brushstrokes, but the answer to your question is the real hope for our future lies in being able to empower youth.
Absolutely, and it's a pleasure to have received such an empowering response from your behalf. And I think that we can all agree, everyone here, all the youth around the world, particularly those that have been given the opportunity to learn, to grow, and to get mentorship from those that have passed in similar experiences, are very privileged to partake in the global vision for the future, and hand in hand with the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals and other global goals. So I will pass the floor to Inaya now. Thank you so much for your reply, and looking forward to a nice question.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, then I'll begin with good morning, Mr. Dino. I'm so excited to be here, because it's a massive opportunity for me, because I'm very talkative and I love sharing my own opinion, and over here I'm actually getting the chance to do so. So yes, I'm really excited. My question is, what do you want students to learn other than subjects? What qualities should they have inculcated, embedded in them, to go out into the real world and be real people?
Okay.
Because we learn science, we learn math, people shine at these subjects. People think that these are the most important thing in the world, that's all we need to do. But that's not true, because what are we judged upon? We're judged upon what are our qualities and how good of a person are we. We all strive to be the best people we can be, but sometimes we need a little help. So, what do you think are the best qualities, the top three qualities that should have been embedded in students, and what who you would like to embed in students?
Okay, so I mean, look, I think is it 3 or 4? Okay, so there's probably 4 things for me personally, but let me look. You're right, Anaya. Right, I think our world is changing at such a rapid pace that actually the core content or knowledge that you perhaps learn at school, you need to be prepared for a time where they become obsolete very, very quickly. So what are the things that I hope that schools leave you with? I mean, first and foremost, if we can leave you with an insatiable love of learning and can teach you how to learn and connect anything, that's a big goal for schools today. I mean, that for me feels like the most important skill that we should leave all students with, right? And then you can apply that in whatever context, because you love to learn and you know how to learn and you know how to make those connections. That's what's going to help you sort of thrive in a rapidly changing context. The other thing that I talk about is we need to give our students a framework of values and character traits that enable them to make the right choices in a rapidly changing context, right? There are going to be so many choices that are going to come your way. And it's not necessarily about good or bad, but it's just, can you make the right choices because you're informed? You know, and you're making an active choice to do something. So giving our students a framework of values and character traits in order to make those right choices. And amongst those, what are the most important values for me personally? So this is me personally. This is what my family believes, right? And each of you will be influenced by your own family beliefs and traits. But for my family, what were the most important things that we knew would be foundations to our success? It was passion, it was ambition, it was humility, and the final one is faith. So those are my 4.
I totally agree with you. These are such important things that people should learn, yet not all of them do in their whole lives. They live to hundreds of years old, but they still don't get these main qualities that should be embedded in them from an early stage. Now I'd like to pass the mic to Talene, please.
Thank you, Inaya. So basically, I still remember the time where me and Rawan were walking in school, and we were just walking and moving around the school because we had break time. And we saw Ayan, and we're like, well, he was busy doing something, so we decided to ask him. And he was like, oh, well, I was writing a poem about something. And we were very interested to actually know what the poem is. And I feel like Rawan wants to add something before Aryan can read the poem for us.
Thank you, Talene. Oh yes, I remember when we were walking around and Aryan read to us this beautiful poem that I believe must be shared with all of us. So Aryan can sometimes come off as a shy kid, but he has so much potential, and I believe that online school has strengthened his confidence. So Aryan, would you like to read us your poem?
Okay, hi, my name is Aryan Sharat from grade 7BA and AKNS, and I'd like to read you my poem about the pandemic. Lockdown made me wonder of the things I used to ponder, things I took for granted, things that I now wanted. Fresh air, green grass, the sprinklers in the park, playing football with my friends, running errands for mum no end. In my room I now sit to put words on paper, these words I feel that seem to drown my sorrows, fears and anger. I hope and wish for better days where I no longer ponder. I celebrate each and every day as that's what lockdown has taught me today. Thank you for listening to my poem. And I'd like to pass the mic to Rawan.
I think I speak for all of us when I say that was a beautifully written poem, and I believe that showed how all of us feel in this pandemic. I'm so proud of all of us to have been able to overcome all these obstacles and show the power we show today. So, Mr. Dino Varki, do you want to comment on the poem he wrote?
It was a wonderful poem. That's all I can say. I don't know if I can comment with a little bit more detail on it, but it was a lovely poem. So well done.
Okay, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Dinovarki. I agree 100% with your opinion. Now, since we have asked you a lot of questions, do you feel the need to ask us any questions? We would be happy to answer any questions you have.
Wow, do I have any questions for you guys? Okay. What was the hardest thing about the pandemic in 1 or 2 words?
I can. I think that would be motivation, because I felt like it is very lonely. I couldn't see people. I couldn't go out. I felt like I was trapped in a cage. I couldn't find the motivation to do my work. I couldn't find the motivation to do the tasks I have to do. But what helped me do it is I remembered that I have potential and I can do this. What also helped me is the support from my friends and family. So I believe that having support is one of the very most important things. So to follow up, I would like to pass the mic to Talien to follow up next.
All right, thank you, Dawan. Basically, I believe that the hardest part of the pandemic was basically the fact that we are not able to see our teachers and our friends in school, because at the beginning of it, some of us were excited because we had 2 weeks off, and then it extended to more time. But I believe that we are still the main problem in it, or the fact that the thing that really affected us in the pandemic is the fact that we were not able to see our friends and our teachers, which was the hardest part, because we were able to see our teachers and friends every single day at school. But then for a whole year, and now it's about a year and a half, we are not able to actually see them. But now, because the things have changed in these 2 semesters of this academic year, we are able to go back to school. But some students have still not decided to go back to school. But I believe that we should all go back to school so we can see each other and we can actually discuss face to face. Because I believe we face many different problems during online school. Because when we're doing, let's say, a test, I remember that I was really worried about the test. That one time I was doing and I had a meeting right after the test, so I had to do it as quick as I can. The test was very easy, but the problem is I submitted the test and then I opened the test again. It was a Google Docs and the test was empty. So everything that I've written was gone. And so I literally emailed my teacher directly, and I was literally about to cry just thinking about, did I submit the thing that's right? Did I submit it empty or not? So I was really worried, and I did another copy of it, but turns out I turned it in and it was full. Like, I believe that we should all go back to school, because I do not believe that anyone should ever face that problem ever again. What do you think, Mr. Dinovarki?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think getting back to normal is very important. There's something about the human condition where we're probably not yet ready to just interact with one another through a laptop or through a screen. And I think we're at our best when we're able to have those very intimate relationships and those real connections face to face. So look, I'm hopeful for things getting back to normal. Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Dino. And I believe some of the students in Al Mawakib School also want to answer this question too. You can go ahead, Al Mawakib.
Hi, yes, I'm Jud Sharaiha from Mawakib. I'm a 10th grader, and it is an honor to meet you, Mr. Dino Varki, and actually be here in the same meeting with you at the moment. From the question that you asked about what are some challenges that I faced during Corona and school year, to be honest, I think everyone can agree when you first start online school and it's first introduced, it's a new thing, so no one knows what to do, how to act, how to prepare themselves to experience an experience that they thought they'd experience just for 2 weeks that ended up being more than a year. That is a challenge I think everyone has faced, but personally, a challenge that I faced, I think, is mostly actually putting my head in somehow in the game and concentrating in a class and not getting distracted because you're not in an environment where you are in a classroom and there is a teacher. You're in your bed, sitting on your bed and watching a class. Anything can happen. So that is what I say about my problems. And I think I'd like to pass the mic to Amkur. Yeah, Amkur, would you like to add anything?
Hello. It's a great pleasure to be here in front of everyone and Mr. Dino Waki. In two words, what I would like to say that affected me most was human interaction. Like everyone else also said before me, I really missed the parts where we could talk to our friends in classes and during the breaks where we could talk to them and we could have a face-to-face interaction with the teacher. And I think that, when we are in class and we do something that we are not supposed to do, if the teacher looks at us, she has a suspicion on us. And I think if since it was an online class, I think a lot of students did things that they were not supposed to do and they were not caught. But another great thing about, but disagreeing on my own point, I would like to say that if the COVID was not there and this pandemic did not happen, I would say that we would never have been able to find out that there's a thing called Teams and Zoom, and like I would never be able to meet you, Mr. Dino Waki, and everyone here. So I think, and also we could never that we would not be able to talk to our friends remotely from our homes. So yeah, I think that's a great um, thing about the Zoom and everything. I would like to pass the mic on to Chloe.
Good morning, Mr. Dino Barkey. I'm Chloe. I'm 11 years old, and I'm here on behalf of Gems World Academy Dubai. It's honestly such a pleasure to be here in your presence. I never thought I would be talking to someone as important as you. The question I would like to ask is, with the pandemic, everyone has learned something new. Whether if it's a new skill or a hobby, everyone has had a lot more time to practice it. What have you learned about yourself during this time?
What have I learned about myself during this time? Oh, I'm going to have to repeat something I said a little bit earlier. I enjoy power naps, and they're invaluable, and they've been invaluable to me over the course of the last 15 months. I know it sounds strange, but I found them revitalizing. What's the other thing? I don't know if you heard me talk about circuit breakers. So just the ability to be able to just break the cycle of the day by just doing something just very different, right? And it didn't matter what it was, right? Whether if I was listening to music, reading a chapter of a book. Okay, I'm going to admit this to you guys. Even if I was spending 5 or 10 minutes on Instagram, that helps because it allows you to break the cycle and it just revitalizes you. So for me, those were the big things for me. My weekly circuit breaker was actually making sure that I played golf at least once a week, which I haven't done for many, many years. But that was my sort of escape, right? So whether it was on a Friday or a Saturday, I'd make sure I go out and play golf because that was my other circuit breaker.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dino Barkey. I am not sure who to pass the mic to.
That's okay.
While we're here waiting, I just wanted to fill in the gap, make a contribution to your question.
You said that there is a past that you.
Yeah, you can go, Roman. Okay, I'll just continue on. So your question was about what was the hardest thing for me and for all of us. So I think that accepting the circumstances that you're in was one of the hardest aspects for me, because acceptance came in many aspects. First of all, we went to the holiday, we didn't return to school. So we had to accept the circumstances that we were in, without school, without friends, without our extended family, without having to go out, having an opportunity to go outside. And so straight away we went into a strict lockdown. We had to accept that we weren't allowed to go outside without a specific appointment for a specific person, for specific timing, and 2 days in prior to the date. And so for me, this was the first concept of acceptance. Then the second concept of acceptance came into in the shape of accepting your flaws, your own flaws, and the flaws of maybe your parents or your siblings, because you're living closely with them together 24/7. You're with them, and so sometimes it's really easy before the pandemic was to escape some of your negative thoughts or your negative aspects of your own character or of characters of the people you're living with. You could just go outside, forget about it, go out with your friends, have a good time, and forget about these problems. But during the pandemic, you had to accept and you have to tolerate, you have to negotiate with some of maybe different opinions that your parents may have, because different generations, of course, there would be some clashes. And it was impossible to not interact with them also, because you're in the same house. So for me, acceptance came in form of accepting your parents and maybe most importantly, your own self, because you had to encounter your own flaws because you're with yourself 24/7, and so there's no way to escape your own self too. So for many students, especially at this age, it's very crucial to encounter your own differences and your own negative aspects, because this is the time that you have the opportunity to change something. Afterwards, it may be a bit harder to maybe change your behavior or maybe change some values that you may have.
Yeah, look, acceptance and patience, I agree with you 100%, were really valuable traits over the course of the last 15 months.
Yeah, Ravan, if you would like to continue what we were on about.
Thank you, Anastasia. So, Mr. Dinovarki, you mentioned that your escape when you're feeling down is to play golf, and Anastasia mentioned that her escape is to go out in the fresh sun and the fresh air. So for me, my escape is to read books. What about you? What is your favorite book?
Ooh, what's my favorite book? Okay, again, I'm going to age myself. I used to love the Lord of the Rings trilogy by J.R.R. Tolkien. That was my favorite book growing up. I've read the sort of the core trilogy 7 or 8 times in my life.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot. 7 or 8 times. I think that's very impressive.
I really love the books.
I love books too. The most times I read books, I can reread them up to 3 or 4 times, but I never reached the point of rereading a book to 7 times. I think that's very impressive. Cheers for you. Okay, so we have Anisha next. She wants to ask you a question. So go ahead, Anisha.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Varki, and good afternoon to everyone gathered here. And it is really an extreme honor to be talking to everyone here as a representative of GEMS Modern Academy. Now, GEMS education has become extremely expansive in the impact that it has had on students, teachers, and parents alike. And it has provided us with an excellent amalgam of education, extracurricular activities, innovation, and most importantly, a lot of morals and ethics. And this monumental success could definitely not have come without risks. And I would love to know what could possibly be the biggest risk that you have taken, and how important and essential is it to take risks to achieve success in one's life?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm probably the most risk-averse person in my family, but that's balanced out by the fact that my father, being a consummate entrepreneur, has a very high tolerance for risk. So I suppose the biggest risks that we've taken as a family, there's a few. My grandparents could have chosen to stay in India. They could have chosen not to make that journey to Dubai, which frankly would have meant that none of our story would never have begun. So already that in itself was an incredible risk. And we need to remember that Dubai and the UAE was a very, very different place. My grandmother used to say that when she got to Dubai, she actually waded through the water when she got off the boat to actually step onto shore. Imagine how you guys come to Dubai today, right?
Yeah.
We're on a plane, right? We walk through the airport, we get in a car, and when we come to our comfortable homes. When they were there, and during their time, and this is late 50s, early 60s, they would literally jump off a ship that they'd been on for weeks at a time, and then they would literally wade in the water in order to get to shore. I think that was so the risk that my grandparents took, absolutely. The other one that I think I'm always conscious of is I think for many, many years, and maybe still to this day, my father, my family, everything that we've ever made from the business, we've reinvested. So to try and build the size and scale of the platform. That has a level of inherent risk just because you're not diversifying your risk. You're not putting your capital and your assets into different sectors just to make sure you're secure. Everything that we've ever done, we've done and focused on education. So some people may view that as risky because we haven't diversified.
Yes, thank you for that answer. I agree with this. It's really important to take risks, and the risk that you've taken to expand education is really benefiting all of us at this point. So thank you for that. And I would now like to pass the mic to Taleen.
All right, thank you, Anwisha. Honestly, I know that Mr. Dino cares a lot about time because I want to talk to him and wrap it up for him because I want to talk to him as a leader, as a student, as an athlete, as a father, and as a reader. I would love to thank you for being here with us and for you to answer our questions and for you to actually ask us questions. It was such an honor for you to be here. Honestly, I never thought that I would be here right now because as the host of the virtual Majlises and as the head organizers of the virtual Majlises, I never thought that I can be here and that I can reach to here. And honestly, I just have one last question that would literally take 2 minutes. I remember during the icebreaker sessions, Elizaveta actually mentioned that she is writing a novel, and we know that you really care about books and that you read books. So maybe Elizaveta has a question to you regarding books, or she wants to share her thoughts and ideas about her novel. You can go ahead, Elizaveta.
Hello, my name is Elizaveta. I am from Ukraine.
Okay.
I want to ask for your questions. Mr. Dino Worker, what do you think, what is more effective, online or offline learning?
I think we're entering a future where it would need to be a combination of both. I think technology, especially if we design the systems right, will actually be able to accelerate learning and progression like we haven't seen before. So we're busy designing what this looks like, but that still doesn't take away from what's possible when you've got those relationships with your teachers in an offline setting, when you're with your peers, when you're with your teachers, when you have the opportunity to interact and collaborate and work on things together. So I think it'll be a combination of both, Elisabetta.
Okay, thank you very much, Taleen.
Thank you, Elizaveta. So I would just wrap it up for Mr. Dino. Honestly, on the behalf, we want to thank you again on behalf of all schools, GEM schools and non-GEM schools. It was such an honor for you to be here, and you added so much to our virtual Majlises, and hopefully we see you again in our next virtual Majlis for the next academic year. It was such an honor for you to be here. Thank you again.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure. I wish you all the success for the rest of your Majlis. I wish I could actually spend all my time with you, but unfortunately, there are other things that beckon. So thank you again. I really enjoyed it. All the best. Bye.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so I can say on behalf of all of us that that was a very interesting discussion with Mr. Dino Warki, the CEO of GEMS Education. Now, to start our discussion or debate amongst us, I want to start by talking about how the COVID or the pandemic had an effect on us as students. So I am a generally digital learning student, but then I had to come to school for some events like TEDx, or some occasions I have to come to school. So when I came to school, I was very excited to come and see everyone and see my teachers. But then I came to school and it was empty. The classes had 2 students here and 3 students here. At most, a class had 5 or 6 students. And I was really down. I felt down because that's not how the school generally feels. The school gave me a very lonely vibe. And I just felt so upset because I was so excited to go and see the students and see the teachers, but I didn't feel that vibe I get, you know? So I was generally upset, but I will not, if I could go back in time and change whether I would go face to face or online, I would still go online learning. And that is because online learning has generally helped us, has generally gave us a lot of lessons. It helped us learn about our responsibilities, it helped in talent development, and I can say with absolute certainty that even though it was an obstacle, we didn't let that obstacle stop us. We went over that obstacle. So to give an example of TEDx, as you know, I'm the head organizer of TEDx 2021 to 2022. So we started with going into TEDx with a certain set of skills. And I, as a person who has no knowledge in technology, and our technology team seemed the most conflicted because the event was held online. So the technology team had a lot to do with the editing, the filming, the green screening. So it might have been too pressurizing on them. So what we did was we picked volunteers from other groups, such as the operations team and our marketing team, and we all helped our technology team. So we went into the TEDx with a certain set of rules, and look at how we came out. We came out with so many more skills to learn. So our talents were developed, our skills were developed. So isn't that talent development? Shouldn't we look at the bright side of things more? Who's next? Okay, and now I'll pass the mic to Rhoda. Rhoda, go ahead.
Rhoda, are you here?
Yes, I'm here, thank you. Okay, so I would like to tell you guys my experience with online learning. It's that I prefer online learning because I feel like it helped me become more self-sufficient and improved various learning techniques. And I feel like in comparison to previously, I'm participating a lot more than before. And I feel like I didn't contribute as much as I do now because I wasn't the sort of person who would share most of her answers. But now I'm sharing my answers considerably more since it's basically me and my own thoughts. As from my experience, some individuals used to always think about like certain perspectives. They would be afraid to participate because they were concerned that people would criticize or laugh at them, which I believe it's better now that everything is done online since it's just you and your personal opinions. Nobody's there to judge you, and you won't be able to see their facial expressions when you're presenting your idea, which will make you feel more confident since you won't know how they're reacting and commenting. I believe that online learning makes you more focused than to face-to-face learning, as face-to-face learning can easily distract you by your friends and acquaintances, whereas online learning is just you and the learning classes, so you become more knowledgeable in these situations, and there's no one there to distract or bother you. I discovered through online learning that we have more practices, and these activities assist us enhance our reading abilities and knowledge inside the subject. I feel like online learning has made me more self-assured and I feel like I finally know who I am. When I was in face-to-face, I barely knew anything about myself, but now that I'm online, I'm learning things about myself that I never knew before, such as how I love poetry and literature, and understand exactly what career I want to pursue. This is another reason why I prefer distance learning. Thank you. That's all I want to say.
All right. So basically, since we have an international student, Asher, so I have a couple of questions for you, Asher. Are you here, Asher?
Yeah.
All right. So my questions to you are you an online student or are you a face-to-face student, or do you have the opportunity to choose between both?
Well, at the minute we are face to face, but it was online like before. But then the vaccines came, and now we're back.
So you're a face-to-face student, right?
Yeah. But there's some like
All right.
restrictions, like in like corridors, we have to wear masks.
All right. So how is it different? Like when you were going to school a while back before the pandemic, how is it similar or different than going back to school now? What are like the similarities and differences between both?
Well, before, but basically, what was happening is that there was more like discipline. So like like it would be like if you get like a concern, you'll get a detention. But now there's kind of less discipline. Some people are like bunking more. They're kind of like they're not really listening to the teacher a lot more. So there's like the concerns are going up.
All right, so there are some differences, like you have to wear the mask, there's like social distancing. So which one do you believe is better? Face-to-face learning from before the pandemic, or now?
I preferred face-to-face learning before the pandemic because like it was less like stress, because obviously like you need to bring your mask, you need to remember your mask, and there's all these restrictions which you need to remember.
All right. So I kind of agree with you because I was also a face-to-face student in the past semester, but I had to change because now, due to face-to-face in my classroom, there was only me and another student, but that student was not coming to school. So it was just me alone in the class for literally like a month and a half, just alone in class. And I remember when teachers would used to pass around like Miss Khulud, and she used to look at me and she's like, Taline, isn't there anyone in the class? Why is the class empty? And then I remember that I used to stay with Miss Khulud all the time, like during breaks and whenever like we have like breaks, like especially during breaks, because there was literally no one with me. And what about you, Raja? Do you agree or disagree? And are you an online student or distance learning?
Hello everyone, I'm Raja Abu Harbid, a 10th grader in Al Mawakib Barsham. Now, thinking about the beginning of COVID journey as a high school student, I can never seem to talk enough about my journey. So as we started, we were all excited, 2 weeks vacation that came out of nowhere. We were all like excited to like be given a small break, not knowing that these 2 weeks will be life-changing. In the beginning, I remember the stress, I remember the anxiety I was going through while managing to open the session in the right time, following the right schedule, and trying to understand the topic that my teacher was trying to explain to me while watching from the laptop. I had to also depend on myself after school to actually revise and watch extra resources and practice and do extra exercises to guarantee that I'm actually on the right track. After things have opened, after, alhamdulillah, much improvement have happened in Dubai, we were given the opportunity whether we want to stay online fully or we would go blended. I'm currently a blended student, yet I believe we are going through a bigger challenge nowadays. We go 2 days a week online and then 3 days in real life school. So the days where I'm online, I'm thinking about the day like tomorrow. I'm thinking about tomorrow where I'll have to go to school, the timing where I'll have to wake up earlier for going to school, and the timing where I'll have to wake up a bit later because I have online school. It's all challenges to cope with. As previously mentioned, going to school and seeing the class barely having 5 to 6 students, it's a bit unfortunate. And I'm actually praying for the time where everything will go back to normal, inshallah. Maya, would you like to tell us more about your challenges that you've faced?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much for your contribution. I just want to say that I'm really enjoying the dynamics of this discussion. All of you have great ideas, and I'm sure that the next speakers have so much more to bring to the table. But perhaps I will testify about my own experience as a 2020 graduate, as a Lebanese citizen and young adult. And I just want to share with you that having graduated from Lebanon when all of the chaos was going on amidst the situation, amidst the pandemic itself and the challenges we were facing that I will briefly tell you about. So it all started in 2019 in my own country when the youth's attempt to reinvent the system as a whole, alongside taking a stand against the embedded corruption and the lack of accountability within the political sector, all of our attempts and of our opportunities to actually pursue education in person, as well as advocate for what we believe in, which is no corruption and effectively good governance principles, were diminished by COVID. And effectively as well, I would like to tell you about how just like all other students, we had to adapt to online learning, and it was quite a shock for us, particularly in Lebanon, because it was one of the few times we actually had technology integrated in our educational system, and we had to face adapting to that. And I know that this was a challenge to many, many of you here as well. Shortly after the situation started to stabilize in terms of the pandemic, the country started to open, we started to pursue just minimal normal activities as we had assumed. The unfortunate and tragic Beirut blast happened that spared the lives and injured hundreds. And it was actually the youth, the students, that presented with their resilient, benevolent, and motivated personalities and contributions to help gather the shattered pieces of the chaos. And in light of online education, adapting to the massive digital interconnectedness, I would like to share the message to the youth today, to you who are present and to all those who are listening to us. We might not know everything, but we know that there's a need. What started with an idea or a moment became a seed. Now is your moment to empower and to watch that seed grow into a flower. And this is your invitation to join the global vocation. Youth innovation, motivation, and power. Stay true to yourself, become students of life, and never cease to go the extra mile. Thank you, and I will pass the floor to Inaya.
All right. So I think that this year has been a crazy academic year. There were so many changes. For some, it was a roller coaster of emotions, causing them to go into a state of darkness and somberness. There were obstacles that were demanding and tough to overcome. Some took a positive view of it though, and they just saw the benefits of coronavirus that made it easier to bear. What went well in this academic year was that we learned many ICT skills. We had to reimagine many things so that we can make it like personalized to ourselves, and it just became so versatile towards our needs. And we didn't have to stick to the school rules as much, and we could make our own rules, and that were being like easier for us. We were able to learn more vocabulary as we could immediately Google it, while at school we might forget it, like a teacher or somebody, or we might have read a new vocabulary word, but then we'd forget it later on with intentions of checking it out, but then we'd completely forget it as we come home. So what did I learn in the pandemic? I learned resilience. I learned how to never give up. I learned to enhance the determination in students. Corona enhanced the determination in students and taught them to be determined and keep up that grit and determination that is so important in our daily lives. I also learned core values other than lessons, such as kindness, empathy, sympathy, and so many more. And I learned both academic and practical skills. Using the computer, I could move around the house and it would be so much easier rather than being at school. As convenient as online school is, we do miss physical school. We want to meet our friends. We want to have fun. But will life ever be the same? We've seen the versatility of online. Will we ever be going to school without gadgets? I don't think so. But whatever happens, we'll always need to be willing to learn, to achieve, and to succeed, and be resilient and positive in all matters. Thank you. All right, I think I'm going to have to be passing the mic to Dima. Dima, I think it's your turn.
Can you hear me, guys? Okay. Hi.
Yes.
Adel. This is my very first virtual Majlis, so I am really honored to be here. So I really want to talk about the UAE safety and how we actually took precautions. As an Emirati, I am extremely proud to say that the UAE did an amazing job of taking safety, and I hope other countries were able to take precautions too. This year, I would say, have been an amazing year for us all, not only because we were able to go out, but also everything upgraded, such as Microsoft, Google Classroom, other websites and applications, just for us to learn and grow and talk with other students and our teachers. Furthermore, we have vaccines increasing by the day, and people getting vaccinated are more than people who have COVID, and that's a huge step to going back to our normal lives. Looking back at myself from 1.5 years ago, I would say that I extremely changed for the better, and I'm sure each and every one of you did too. I would say that distance learning gave us a huge chance to reform and improve ourselves and to boost our confidence, since we had months to focus on self-care and mental health. My aptitude development have been changing for the better in these couple of months. For example, I have been reading like Rowan and Mr. Dino Varki. I have been reading for 8 months now, and my English vocabulary skills have been improving for the better. So if I had to go back in time and change a thing, like Rawan said, I wouldn't, because in the end, it was worth it. So yeah. Thank you, guys. I don't know who to pass the mic to. I think Yad. I'm not sure.
All right, yeah, thanks. I'll take it from here. Thank you, Tima. So during these times of Corona, right, it's like Corona has changed a lot of our daily activities, not just the students, but definitely our real lives. And this might sound very controversial, obviously, but as much bad as Corona did, it has done some good. And I'm here to only speak about the good stuff, right? If it wasn't for Corona, we wouldn't know what to do in difficult times like these in the future, God forbid. We wouldn't realize how powerful and strong we are when we come together as one hand. Teachers trying to teach and students trying to learn from their teachers, right? For online versus physical school, they both got their pros and cons. In online school, you're much more time efficient in the sense that there's no transportation time needed, and you don't really need to get as ready as you would for school physically, which cuts out a lot of time. In physical classroom, though, the teacher is free to move the students around, grouping them in different ways to make activities run smoothly, and the students are more focused and disciplined. I do believe physical school is better for new and experienced students. How the school system, but I'm still in grade 12, and I still prefer to go to school just for the factor of making friends with teachers. You know, it's something I don't think you're really able to do in online school. I mean, thank you. I'll be passing the mic to Ali. Ali, please have it.
Thank you, Iyad. Assalamu alaikum. This is Ali Ahmed Al-Hashmi representing the American School of Creative Science. First of all, I would like to say that it's been very interesting to hear about how you guys adapted to the pandemic and overcame its negative repercussions. And it shows that the new generation, our generation, is growing to become more resilient day by day. And I can definitely see a future leader in every single one of you. From my personal experience, the hybrid style of learning was highly effective for myself because it blends the best of both worlds. And I would love to see schools integrating the positive aspects of online learning even beyond the pandemic. And I'm sure most of you can agree with this. I will be passing the mic to Idalia.
Hello, I'm Idalia, representing the Winchester School. So when I started online, I had a big surprise coming in for me. It's one that shook my life, especially this year. I became the head of well-being in my school. So as soon as the pandemic, the outburst was there, even worse than ever, I worried about my whole school's psychological health, moreover, because I wanted to care about that. I think I have realized a lot in Corona, like from this situation, much more than I can just say in a few minutes. But I will say that I have understood completely the importance of taking care of our mental health and well-being, because I remember the public health actions such as like social distancing, as much as it was important, it was isolating a lot of us. So it caused a bit of a friction between each other, which it didn't really enable us to be more free. Obviously, we had to keep going on with the precautions because it was a bad time, but I am very proud of my school in a way because we have made sure to make it very much like school as much as we can, and our school has supported each one of our students. They've tolerated, understood, and accepted each child's need in this time. And with that, I pass the mic to Saif. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Saif Al-Falasi from grade 8 BC, and I just want to talk about how COVID affected the environment dramatically. COVID has been here for like a year and a quarter, maybe, and it has affected the environment a lot. Overall, the pandemic has caused huge global socio-economic disruption, which directly or indirectly affected the environment, like improvement of air and water quality. For example, the ozone layer. The ozone layer has been restored based on scientific research because car munition has been stopped because of corona, which has caused quarantine. And that's all I have to say. I pass the mic to Elisveta.
I want to speak about situation in Ukraine. At the beginning, we hadn't anything of restrictions. Yes, we didn't go to school and university. university, and we should to wear protect masks. But this was small bear. My friends and I can go to mall or coffee. Several months later, lockdown intensified. Car, restaurant, and entertainment centers were closed. Government was closed boundaries. We could not fly to foreign countries. It is forbidden to hold mass events in cities. In Ukraine, on Saturdays and Sundays, only grocery stores, pharmacies work, but we could meet with friends at the park. In recent weeks, there have been massive protests in the cities. Protesters without protect masks, as well as some of the protesters are holding balloons with the words "Stop Fake Pandemic." Also, protesters opposite vaccination. Oh, sorry. But in the month of May, a tough lockdown was removed. The government allowed the use of public transport and go to restaurants, only we still have to wear masks. Many people think so the healthcare is failing. There are no places in hospitals. In part, I can agree with this. However, I believe that you should not dwell on the fact the situation in the world is improving every day. Who next?
Thank you, Elizabeth. Aisha, you can go ahead.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Aisha and I go to Al Muwakib School and I'm so excited to hear about everyone's takes on their reflections on this past year. Now, me personally, when COVID first began, I was among the people who didn't really understand the whole concept and thought it was just going to go away after that 1 month that we had off. And surprising to say that it did take up almost more than a year now. But for me, I personally do hybrid as of right now. So I'm doing half blended, half in that. So I'm doing blended and I'm like at home. And for personally, I feel like that blended learning is the best way to go. And because it basically puts in the best of both worlds, which I think someone mentioned before. And it's so interesting because online learning actually makes you like do your learning in your own convenience at your home in your space, which is so much more convenient for people who are there are people who are like traveling abroad and still being able to do their online because of how easy it is. And it's also very cool to see how like the world has advanced so much, how the world has united to support each other, to come together. And I think that COVID has basically given us the opportunity to rebuild a better life for this earth in general. And to add on to what everyone said, is that like blended learning, I mean, I hope that we can go back to like, you know, face to face like 100% next year, but blended learning as of right now is the best way, with taking all the foot precautions, wearing your mask, social distancing, and you know, all of that. And it's very interesting to see how Ukraine was handling the pandemic differently, so thank you for that, Elisabetta. I'd now like to pass the microphone to Amma.
Thank you. About last year, when, oh, by the way, I'm Amog here from representing our own boys, Sharjah. Sometime last year, when the pandemic started and when we finally got the chance to go on site, I was one of 11 students from my grade to choose on-site studies. And it felt so good meeting teachers, the face-to-face studies. It felt great because after many, many months, we were finally able to meet them, who we only saw through a camera. We were finally able to meet them in person, talk to them. In fact, more than studying, I was joking around with my teachers. And a few months later, after I chose on-site studies, I had to go online for a brief period of time until I came into 11th grade. And in 11th grade, I am a student leader. I am an office bearer, the secretary of student council. And it was very difficult for me and my fellow office bearers to guide or lead our fellow classmates or our fellow schoolmates in school through the online platform, through Zoom, through Microsoft Teams. So we decided, you know what, we are going to choose on-site studies this year, and we are going to go and we will take our school to new heights. And So far, it has been a great success. After accepting that the pandemic is a thing and we have to take all the necessary precautions, and after coming to school, it has been really great now. I just wanted to share that with all of you. Thank you. And I'm not sure who I should pass the mic on to now. I'm sorry.
Oh, I think it's Rhoda's turn.
Oh, great. Okay, Rhoda, I'm passing on the mic to you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry if I didn't introduce myself to you guys. My name is Rhoda. I'm from Al Khalij National School and I'm in grade 9 GB. So I would like to go to the people that are going towards face-to-face because I still find it funny that people still decide that face-to-face is much better, while in my opinion, online is much better than face-to-face. So as from the site of EHL Insights, they mentioned that in such typical classroom environment, you will most likely just be able to talk with your instructor one-on-one during their scheduled office hour or for a few minutes after class. When you learn online, you'll be able to contact with your instructor by email, group chats, or phone to obtain the feedback or support you require to better your online experience. And that from Priyanka Gautam from the site e-learning industry, she mentioned that the efficiency in online learning is much better. Digital class helps teachers to give courses to students in a more efficient manner. Online learning includes a variety of materials such as films, presentation, and podcast, which teachers may use into their lesson plans. Teachers may become more efficient instructors by expanding the lesson plan beyond standard textbooks to include internet resources. And that and she also mentioned, as from Kelsey Miller from the Northeastern University program, that online learning helps you think critically about what you do every day. The purpose of the classroom is to challenge you to think in new ways. Mastering this ability will set you apart as a learner. Critical thinking is more in all types of schooling, online learning. On the other hand, challenges you to exercise critical thinking abilities in ways that you would not have had the opportunity to do in a traditional classroom setting. And as from the site EHL, they even mentioned that studying online also requires you to apply critical thinking skills in one's daily life. Although the skill is formed in a classroom as well, it can be more permitted in an individual learning environment. It is also because online education is more of a self-paced and self-motivated environment, which requires you to make decisions and face more challenges, not only in terms of teaching materials, but also in terms of how to structure your daily fit and necessary study time. It is a critical thinking and overcome challenge is beneficial not only as an educator, but also to a prospective employee. And that you even have the ability to learn at your own pace. You may select your own speed with online learning, which gives you a higher chance to fully gain and returning the knowledge in your assessments. Apart from traditional classes, when you must take components notes during lectures in order to examine the information afterward, online learning allows you to examine the course materials as frequently as you like and at time when you are most concentrated. Conversations and lectures will be delivered through film and podcast, which may be watched, paused, and repaid as required and ensure you're on track. It also gives you the privilege to being able to complete materials in classes that are similar for your similar more quickly, allowing you to devote more time to courses that are more challenging for you. And I would even like to mention from Thomas Broderick from the site of Open Education Basis. He mentioned that online learning can assist students in owning the technical abilities required on the workplace. New abilities can include the ability to utilize new software suites, conduct in-depth online research, and interact successfully online in a variety of media such as decision boards and video conferencing. Learners can also update their resume with new abilities. Last but not least, affordability. As from Priyanka Gautam from the e-learning industry, she mentioned that other benefit of online learning is that it saves money who compared to traditional schooling. Online education is significantly more cheap. This is due to the fact that online learning reduces the cost of student transportation, their food, and most crucial, real estate. Furthermore, all courses or studying materials are available online, resulting in a paperless learning environment that is both more economical and environmental friendly. So thank you. I think so I'll have to pass my mic to Ali.
Thank you, Ramadan. I would like to mention something that is very important. We can't say online learning is better than face-to-face learning, or face-to-face learning is better than online learning. Because in education, we have curriculums, we have a variety of different ways people learn. For example, what works for me might not necessarily work for my colleague. I learn through visual cues. My friend learns through memorization. So that's why we have all these different curriculums. As you can see, we have American curriculum, British curriculum, we have Swiss curriculum, French curriculum, we have the ministry curriculum. So students have a variety to choose what is most suitable to them. So it's your personal perspective that online learning is better than face-to-face learning. While in my opinion, face-to-face learning is more effective, but for me, because it's a case-by-case situation. Now, I feel like in the future, I don't think students are going to have the option of choosing one over the other, because most likely it's going to be face-to-face learning, because that's the way that it's always been, and that's the perception of a normal lifestyle. Now, that being said, if schools or educational leaders were to integrate the positive aspects of online learning, I know you mentioned quite a few, if they were to implement those alongside face-to-face learning, we're going to have a hybrid model that is perfect to, I wouldn't say everyone because that's impossible to achieve, but I would say 80% of the students. That being said, I would like to hear from Anastasia. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks so much for your contribution and for your ideas. I think they're very valuable for the UAE government and governments all around the world. And it's also really important to acknowledge that some people do believe that living within this technological age, it's true that globalization, cultural integration, increased travel and transportation have made pandemics like COVID-19 spread as we've seen COVID-19 spread over the past year or so. So I definitely do agree with them, because it is true, if we weren't allowed to travel, that pandemic that broke out in China might have never gotten as far as America or the Europe or the UAE as well. So I think that is completely true, but it's also really important to acknowledge that living within this technological age, we also have the means of fighting the COVID-19 pandemic as we might have never had before. So we have the technology, we have the knowledge, we have the sources to invest into development of the vaccines. I mean, we've seen scientists from all around the world communicating remotely because the technology was there, and developing the vaccines because the technology again was there, the investment was there, and there was a huge desire to help people all around the world. Yes, it took us some time and investment, but we are here right now, and the UAE actually offers all of the 4 vaccines that are currently available and approved by the health authorities. So I'm really proud to say that I'm a resident of the UAE, as I've already mentioned with Mr. Warki, because the UAE is the leader in this fight against the coronavirus. We've seen vaccines come around, and these vaccines are actually free of charge for UAE residents and nationals. So the UAE government really tries to encourage us to get vaccinated. All of the, as some people mentioned, that there are more people who are vaccinated right now than people who are not vaccinated. So more than 60% of the population in Dubai are in fact vaccinated. And this all benefits to developing a herd immunity. And herd immunity will help us fight the coronavirus in the long term. So we will get through that with the help of herd immunity. And one of the many aspects that the UAE government initiates is the PCR testing. We have all seen the rise in the coronavirus cases from comparing from the beginning of 2020 to the end of 2020. Almost 10 times there was a rise. But this was not because the healthcare was not there or because people didn't adhere to the precautions or the social distancing or the masks that are mandatory to wear even right now. This was because the PCR testing has increased at an unprecedented rate. We have now lots and lots of facilities that offer PCR testing, vaccinations. We have drive-through PCR testing available. We have some of the cleaning companies that actually offer you vaccination from the comfort of your home. So you get people who are with busy schedule, who are maybe working 24/7 and don't really have an opportunity to go and make that vaccination. UAE government actually offers on-site vaccination. So that is a huge breakthrough that we all should appreciate the UAE for keeping us safe, for keeping us intact with our learning, and for keeping us always communicating with each other, because this Majlis is all about communicating and share our own experience through the pandemic. Dima, if you would like to elaborate on what I've just said, I would really be grateful for you to do so.
Thank you, Anastasia. That was beautifully said. I think I don't need to add anything about your topic, but I just want to talk about how we overcome the obstacles that that happened 1.5 years ago when COVID started. I remember for the past year and a half, the world did a huge shift. And us humans did a major shift too. Lockdown and then not lockdown and then lockdown again have served us as a reminder of just how us humans are adaptable. I personally was amazed how quickly socializing with friends indoors became as a fuzzy memory. I remember us all celebrating that we will be distance learning for 2 weeks, but that was not the case. I'm pretty sure every school was a mess in the beginning. Teachers didn't know about technology that much or didn't know what was going on in general. And as a student, I would say that it was the messiest part of distance learning. Projects, finals, school trips were all cancelled. And as a person who loves to learn and loves growing, that's when I felt lost. So like I talked about the UAE safety, when the government started taking precautions and vaccines and social distancing, when everything opened again, we all did our best to start communicating again. We started new hobbies, for example, as swimming in the summer or horse riding in the winter or skating in the weekends, just to keep our minds going. That's all that I want to add. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dima. Ali, you can go ahead and mention your quick points.
I just want to add something to what Dima and Anastasia said. When we first started online learning, we had a teacher that we used to joke about how he doesn't even know how to log into his computer. How is he going to teach us online? And surprisingly, his online lesson became my favorite lesson because he was doing all sorts of activities. He was doing all sorts of implementing new technology, and he made it interesting, even though at the beginning we were doubting him. So I think what the pandemic did is that it pushed him to explore new things. It pushed him beyond what he was initially comfortable with, and he didn't have a purpose to explore new things, and the pandemic gave him this push. So I think it's definitely interesting how the pandemic, even though it's a bad thing, it reaped some positive aspects. Thank you. Who should I pass to?
Thank you, Ali. It's all right. You can pass it to me. So I would like to just wrap up what we have talked about. Basically, this virtual Majlis's aim is to discuss about our voice, us as students, what's our voice, the reflections and takeaways from the past year. So this is why this virtual Majlis is very important. We also discussed about students' voice in a past virtual Majlis, which was our second virtual Majlis. And so basically, we have concluded that some students actually agree that we should go to school and we should continue with face-to-face learning. Other students disagree and say that we should continue with distance learning. So basically, this is why our virtual Majlis is important. I am very sad to announce that this is our last virtual Majlis for this academic year. This time, I won't be able to say, see you in the next virtual Majlis, but I would rather say goodbye. However, I would like to announce that we are going to invite all of you to the brainstorm session to discuss about the topics for the next academic year's virtual Majlises. We are going to be sending you guys a form, and please fill the form, and we will see you again in the final celebration, and that we will announce about that final celebration about the most active students, most participated schools, permanent seats, and many other things. It was such a pleasure having you all participate in these virtual majlises. Goodbye and have a wonderful day.